All right, we're on to our sixth SOL review, which is reviewing radicals. We want to incorporate DESMOS more than we did before. To start off, I'm just going to flip this paper over, and I'm not going to be here very long. I want to talk about how we used to do it. So it used to look like this, the square root 72, and then we'd go break it down, break it down, break it down, break it down. We'd try to break it down into prime numbers, like 2 times 36, 2 times 18, 2 times 9. We can't break 9 by 2, so we break it by 3 instead. And once we get to having only prime numbers left, well, now we would do some circling. We would decide what goes on the inside, what goes on the outside. But that's a lot of brain. That's a lot of writing things down. And on the SOL test, you're probably not really going to want to be using your pencil very much. So, what can we do instead? If I try DESMOS, first of all, how do we type in square root? On the front again, I'm going to go with SQRT. And those are just the letters from SQ, which means square, and RT, which means root. Also worth noticing, and we're talking about, is the cube root, which we never quite mastered before. How do we get the 4 letters to be cube root? It's the same thing. We don't want SQ anymore because we're not doing square. We want CB because those are the letters from cube. So it's going to be CBRT. So it's probably worth, practicing that just for a second. SQRT. And if you type that in, you're going to get a square root, CBRT. And if you type that in, you're going to get a cube root. I just want to say that 3 square root is not a cube root, right? This is very different than CBRT. We need that floating 3, and it has to be on top of the root. And so you'll see a few students who even try to do something like this, Shift 6-3, SQRT, that is still not a cube root. That is still bad. So you have to know CBRT. Makes your nice cube root. Okay. Back here. The first question is square root 72, so I'm just going to type it in. Square root 72. And when I do type it in, yuck. I get a gross decimal. This decimal doesn't look anything like the answers. We've used the same strategy for pretty much the entire SOL review. Type in the question. What else are we going to type in? We're going to type in the answers. So I'm going to look at question. I'm going to look at letter A, which is 2 square root 6 on this piece of paper. 2 square root 6, and I'm going to type that in. 2 SQRT 6. And what do you think about letter choice A? If you had to guess, does this look like a match? Does this look like a good answer? No, it's 8.48, and I don't know what that means, but I know it's different than 4.89. So already, I don't like letter choice A. So let's try letter choice B, which is 2 square root 18. How do you feel about letter choice B? 8.48 or 8.485 and 8.485. I think letter choice B looks pretty good. Should we even try letter C, or should we just move on? You know what? I'm the math teacher. I'm always doing extra stuff. 3 square root 8. And letter choice C, what do you think about letter choice C? Wait a second. Letter choice C is also the same thing, 8.485. I am doing my best to act surprised, but I did know that was going to happen. Letter choice C is also a legitimate answer. Okay? We've typed both of these in. They've both given us the same thing. I hope you're paying attention because obviously there's something going on here that's a little bit, strange. We've got 2 valid answers. So, which one are we going to choose? A or C? Or sorry, not A. Either B or C. What do you think?
C.
I heard C. I heard Marco say, what about D? You know what? I mean, surely. Let's try D out real quick. 6, SQRT 2. Oh my God. D also is a valid, it looks good. It gives me the same decimal. So, again, I really hope you're paying attention. We gotta know all of these look like good options. We need to pick the correct one. The good news is, it kind of says it at the top here. We need simplest form. And simplest form means smallest inside number, right? This is what we're looking for right here. The smallest number under the square root. So those numbers are 18 under the square root, 8 under the square root, and 2 under the square root. So out of B and C and D, which letter are you going to choose? We need to choose letter D. Now, still, that's really not that hard. You just got to pick the one with the smallest inside number. You have to be ready for that, and you have to make sure to try all your answers and be extra sure. Again, I just want to be clear that B was the correct decimal, but 18 was too big. That's the only thing it did wrong. And C, 8, it was just too big. When it got compared with 2, smallest, that's why we chose letter choice D. At this point, just type it in, and number 2 should not be a problem at all. Now, one thing that teachers like to say sometimes is look at the numbers on the inside. We've got 7, 49, 2, and 2. And so, if you look at those numbers on the inside, if you try them from smallest to biggest order, then you're going to find the correct answer first. If we had started with the smallest number, D, if we had started here and we already knew it was the smallest, we could have been done and we would not have to try all of them. So when I do question number 2, instead of going A, B, C, D, I'm going to start with C and D because these have the smallest insides. Now, that doesn't mean they're right. I still have to have a matching decimal, but I'm going to start with the smallest inside numbers. We've got square root 98. That's the question. C is 7 square root 2. And D is 49 square root 2. What do you think about C or D? Any of those look good? Obviously, I hope you're following along. And letter choice C looks like the correct answer. 9.8, 9.8. And because we already tried C, which is the smallest inside number, we don't even have to try B. Because even if B looks good, 49 is too big. Even if letter A looks good, 7 is too big, we're going with 2. So it's a little bit of a strategy that you can try the smallest ones first. Okay, so far we've done the first 2 questions. Pretty much type them in, find a match. Now, normally on a piece of paper, I give you 9 or 10 questions, and I give you one hard question. And normally I put that one hard question at the end, but I've noticed that we get a little sleepy, we get a little distracted by the end. So guess what? Number 3. Here is your hard question for the day. Question number 3. That means even if numbers 1 and 2 are feeling really easy, wake it up a little bit, do a little dance or something, get the blood flowing again, and lock it in with me for question number 3. Okay? This is I think, legitimately hard question. I think on the SOL test, a lot of people are missing this. And not just people in our classroom. I think people in the classrooms down the hall. I think people in the classrooms down the street are going to be missing question number 3. It says, for which value of x does cube root x simplify to 5 cube root 7? So I'm noticing kind of 6 things right here. I'm noticing this, and then all 4 answer choices. So I'm kind of seeing 6 pieces here. And if I go to Desmos, oh, not that, and I type in 6 different things, like the cube root of x, that's the first one I saw, 5 cube root 7, that was also in the question. If I type in answer choice A, or answer choice B, or answer choice C, or answer choice D, this is a hard question because none of this is matching up at all. The first one, Desmos says, yeah, I can graph that for you. You know, there's your graph. It's a weird looking graph, but there's your graph. The second one, Desmos says, well, there's no variables, so I can't graph it for you, but I can give you the number. I can calculate it. Okay, thank you, Desmos. We've got a graph and we've got a number. And then A, B, C, D, these are just plain numbers. Desmos doesn't know what to do. It's like 35 what? Is that supposed to be 35x? Is that supposed to be... And so, for this question, what are we supposed to do? Does anybody have any ideas how we can proceed?
No.
Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, this is a hard question. That's why we're going through it. What we're going to do is it says, for which value of x does the cube root of x simplify to 5 cube root 7? So it seems like we want to turn this piece and simplify it into that piece, right? It says, for which value of x does this simplify to that? So we want to turn this original into this piece. Then it says, for which value of x, which makes me think we need to be changing that x. And so all of these answers are actually going to be the numbers that's going to go inside into where that x is. So we're not going to be typing in the answers like this. We're going to go back to that first thing we had with the x. We're going to delete the x, and it says for which value of x? We try 35. And does that look like it's giving us a valid simplification? I don't think so, right? I mean, we got 3.27, we got 9.56. I think letter choice A doesn't work. Now I'm going to try B, 245. I'm going to put it into the x. So I'm going to backspace my 35. I'm going to input my 245. And again, I don't think this is good enough. 6.25, that's not working for me. So I'm going to go back. B is a fail. Now I'm going to try C, which is 875. Backspace, 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 875. And there I'm getting the correct answer. And so C is the answer to question number 3. I do think this is a hard question. Like I said, I think a lot of people are missing this when the SOL shows up. We don't have to get every single hard question correct. But I just want to show you for just a second, even though I consider this a hard question, all you had to do was put number into equation. Like the difficulty was just noticing, oh, I need to put my 35 here. Didn't work. Put my 245 here. For the cube root.
How did you get rid of 3 on top?
You talking about this 3 right here, Brandon?
Yeah.
So that's your cube root. We talked about that at the top of the paper. So the cube root, you got to press CBRT, not SQRT. So when I typed it in with CBRT. And it really is that easy, Brandon. You just press CBRT. CBRT.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely going to need that for the SOL test. All right, moving on. The rest of these, pretty easy. We just need to type them in and see what we get. Number 4, I'll do it quickly here. The cube root 3456. That's kind of a nice number. CBRT 3456. Enter. And again, if you want to start with the smallest numbers and work your way up, you can save yourself some time. So when I see 12, 16, 2, 6, I can try this one first, and I can try this one second, and I can try this one third. Forgot my I. And I can try this one fourth. That way, as soon as I find a correct answer, I'm done. So I'm going to start with C, 12 cube root 2. 12 cube root 2. Is that the same answer? Yeah, it's the same answer. And I don't even have to try the other ones because I know for a fact that 2 is the smallest. There's no way another answer would be better. Even if D worked, it's too big. Even if B worked, it's too big. And A is too big. So that's just a little strategy to save you time. All right, the very last thing I'm here to show you today is what do we do with letters? So, question number 6, or 5 actually. Question number 5 says which expression is equivalent to this? And the big problem is that it's got letters, okay? I remember doing these letters. If you remember doing them this way, it would say something like x5. We would go like x, 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 and we'd write a whole bunch of x's. And you could totally do that. But again, on the SOL test, you might not want to do that. This is the last thing we're going over. Few people on the phone in the lab, phone next to the computer. Let's make sure those are getting put away. Again, you fail this test one time, it's only going to take you another week of studying, and that's probably not what you want to do. So this one has letters. Let's type it in exactly how it looks. SQRT180, X power 9, Y power 16. I got a couple problems. First of all, look at the way that this got typed in. My Y is accidentally floating. The Y should be down here next to the X. So let's make sure that we come down and then we type Y power 16. Now that looks much better. Wake it up a little bit, Devin. Nice little jar. Now we've got an error message. It says try adding an equal sign, right? Desmos is saying, I see that you have X's and Y's. I kind of need an equal sign if you're going to have two different letters. And remember, we could even see a question that maybe even has Z's. Something like Z cubed. Desmos has no idea how to deal with that Z. It's saying, I don't know, what do you want me to add a slider? This is pretty much never what you want to do. So, with these letters, Desmos is having a problem. Now, we're going to really bend the rules here. We're going to go with some real illegal mathematics. We're going to just replace every single letter with an X. We know that if Desmos has X's, Desmos does a good graph. We're going to just replace all of them with X's. So I'm going to backspace the Y and type an X. And as soon as we do that, Desmos has given me a graph. Now this graph is going to be ugly. This graph is going to be weird. But at least it's a graph. And so let's try A, B, C, D. And let's see which graph gives us the same exact one. Make sure it's the same exact one. So we can try letter A, 3x cubed, y power 4. Remember, we can't use y, so I'm going to go backwards, backspace, and put an x there. Square root 20. Now this graph, does it look exactly the same? No, I don't think it looks exactly the same. This graph has two pieces on it. It's got this tail down here. We don't need that. I think A is wrong. So let's try B. 3x power 4. Y power 8. Can't use Y. Got to make it an X. SQRT 20x. How does letter B look? I think B looks great. Is the answer B? So here's the problem we might have. If C is also good, C would win because the inside is smaller. Same with D. We didn't try them in smallest order this time, so we need to check all of them. I think that, yes, B looks good, but let's try C. 6x cubed. Got to stick with all x's. Square root 5. Again, that one doesn't look good. And then D, 6x power 4, y power 8, sqrt 5x. Again, it looks like I have an error message. What did I do wrong? Oh, I put a y, right? So always those error messages are great. If you see that, hover over them and see what's wrong. Did letter D give us the same exact thing as the original? I think letter D also works. And so at this point, you're probably thinking, Mr. Collier, I understand how this works. If you got two answers, you need to pick the smallest inside piece. So we're going with D as the final answer because B is too big. All right, at this point, it is just purely type it in, get the answer. Type it in, get the answer. Type it in, get the answer. Make sure you use X's instead of any other letters. We're going to end the video here. We've kind of gone over everything. Yeah, there's not really much more point to the video.